The steam in the bathroom was suffocating, clinging to the cold tiles like a second skin, but it did nothing to hide the trembling of my hands. I was the youngest son of the Sterling dynasty, a family that ate its own young for breakfast, caught in the crossfire between my two older half-brothers. I had survived by being invisible, by being the quiet, illegitimate stain on their pristine lineage. But invisibility was no longer an option. "Tell me, little brother," Jordan sneered, his voice dripping with a predatory amusement that made my stomach turn. He cornered me against the marble sink, his heavy boot kicking aside the laundry hamper. "What exactly are you hiding in here? You lock the door like you're guarding the crown jewels." I clutched the towel tighter around my waist, water dripping from my hair onto my bare shoulders. "Get out, Jordan. This is my private bathroom. You have no right? Jordan laughed, a harsh, barking sound. He took a step closer, invading my personal space, his scent of stale tobacco and aggression overwhelming the room. "I'm a Sterling. I own this house. I own the air you breathe. And I know you've got a secret, Kevin. A biological anomaly. Something distinct." He reached out, his fingers grazing the damp skin of my arm. "Why didn't you tell your big brother Jordan that you were born with such a pretty little gift between your legs?" My breath hitched. He knew. The secret I had guarded since puberty, the anatomical deviation that marked me as different, as something other than a man, was out. "Don't touch me," I hissed, backing up until the cold porcelain of the bathtub bit into my calves. "Or what?" Jordan taunted, his hand reaching for the towel. "You'll cry to Daddy? Daddy's dead, Kevin. We buried him this morning. There's no one left to protect. Jordan." A voice cut through the steam, cold and sharp as a scalpel. We both froze. I hadn't heard the door open. I hadn't heard footsteps. Standing in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame with a terrifying stillness, was Christopher, my eldest brother, the prime alpha of the family. He was looking down at his phone, but the air in the room had instantly shifted, heavy with the crushing weight of his pheromones, frost and steel. "Christopher," Jordan stammered, taking a quick step back from me. "I was just teaching the kids some manners." Christopher finally looked up. His eyes were dark, unreadable voids. He wasn't looking at Jordan. He was looking at me, or rather, at the terrified pulse fluttering in my throat. Then, his gaze shifted to Jordan's hand, which was still hovering near me. "Do you believe me?" Christopher said softly, his voice devoid of any emotion, "that if you touch him with those filthy hands again, I will chop them off right here?" Jordan paled. "He's just a bastard, Chris. A freak. And you are annoying me," Christopher countered, stepping into the room. The sheer dominance radiating off him forced Jordan to lower his head, a biological instinct he couldn't fight. "Get out." Jordan scrambled past him, muttering curses under his breath. I was left alone with Christopher. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable. I gripped the towel, waiting for his judgment. Christopher merely glanced at the red laser dot of a hidden camera lens disguised within the showerhead. A camera I hadn't known was there until that moment, and then looked at me. "Clean yourself up," Christopher said, his tone dismissing me as if I were nothing more than a piece of furniture. "The lawyer is reading the will in an hour. Don't embarrass me." He turned and left, leaving me shivering in the cooling steam. The funeral had been a dreary affair, the sky weeping gray rain over the assemblage of black umbrellas. Now, inside the family estate's grand library, the atmosphere was even colder. The lawyer, a nervous man named Mr. Henderson, stood behind the massive oak desk, reading the final decree of our father. "To my eldest son, Christopher Sterling, I leave 15% of the company's shares," Henderson read, his voice shaking slightly. A murmur went through the room. "Only 15? Christopher sat in a high-backed leather chair, his face a mask of indifference, tapping a cigarette against a crystal ashtray. "To my second son, Jordan Sterling," Henderson continued, "I leave 10%. Jordan slammed his hand on the armrest of his chair. 10? That's it." And Henderson raised his voice. "The remaining 75% of the estate and controlling interest in Sterling Global is bequeathed to Kevin, provided he is proven to be of Sterling blood." The room exploded. Jordan shot out of his seat, lunging across the room to where I stood by the old butler. He grabbed me by the collar, hauling me forward. The flame of his lighter flickered dangerously close to my eye. "You little mongrel," Jordan screamed, shaking me. "Father hid you away, kept you like a dirty secret, and now he gives you everything? You aren't even one of us." I was smaller, weaker, but survival instinct is a powerful thing. I couldn't break his grip, so I lowered my head and bit down hard on the fleshy part of his hand between his thumb and forefinger. "Ah!" Jordan shrieked, dropping me. He stared at the blood welling on his hand, his eyes wide with shock. "You have sharp teeth for a stray dog." His face twisted into a snarl, and his hand shot out, wrapping around my throat, squeezing. "You think those shares will save you? If the heir dies before the transfer, the assets revert to the siblings. Do you understand that, Kevin? Let him go." The command wasn't shouted, but it cracked through the room like a whip. Christopher hadn't moved from his chair. He hadn't even looked up from the unlit cigarette in his fingers. "He gets 75%, Christopher," Jordan shouted, gesturing wildly at me. "Why? Because the old man felt guilty? We can't let this happen. We need to contest it. We will verify the bloodline," Christopher said calmly, finally lighting his cigarette. The flame illuminated the sharp angles of his face. "If he is a Sterling, the will stands. If he isn't, well, then the problem solves itself." "He's a bastard," Jordan spat. "He is a boy," Christopher corrected, blowing a plume of smoke into the air. "And until the DNA results come back, he is under my protection." Jordan scoffed, releasing me with a shove. "You want to play big brother to the usurper? Fine. But when that test comes back negative, I get first crack at him." The family doctor was summoned immediately. The tension in the library was palpable as the needle piercing my skin. I didn't flinch. I just watched the dark red blood fill the vial. Christopher stood over me, watching the procedure with hawk-like intensity. When the doctor finished, Christopher took the sealed sample bag himself. "I will transport this to the lab," Christopher announced. "I don't trust any of you not to tamper with it." The hours of waiting were agony. I sat in the corner, clutching the worn fabric of my backpack, the only thing I had brought with me. Finally, the results arrived. Christopher opened the envelope, scanned the document, and then tossed it onto the coffee table toward Jordan. Jordan snatched it up, his eyes scanning the page. A cruel, humorless smile twisted his lips. "Well, look at that. He really does share half the old man's DNA. He's a Sterling." Jordan looked at me with renewed hatred. "So, big brother, who gets custody of the billionaire brat?" The room fell silent. I kept my head down, waiting for the wolves to tear me apart. "I will," Christopher said. I looked up, startled. "I will raise him until he is of age," Christopher continued, his voice smooth, settling the matter with the finality of a gavel strike. "He will live with me." Jordan narrowed his eyes, but knew better than to argue with the prime alpha. "Fine. Take him. Just keep him out of my sight." Christopher stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Let's go, Kevin." I followed him out to the waiting black Bentley. The rain was still falling, drumming a rhythmic beat on the roof as I slid into the back seat. Christopher got in beside me. The car smelled of expensive leather and his overwhelming scent, winter air and something darker, like burnt sugar. He reached out, his hand hovering near my face. I flinched, pressing myself into the door. "You're bleeding," he said, his voice low. I touched my cheek, a small scratch from Jordan's ring. "It's fine. I don't need a doctor. I have a first aid kit at the house," Christopher said, withdrawing his hand. "Don't be difficult." "I'm not being difficult," I whispered, clutching my backpack. I heal fast." He looked at me, really looked at me, for a long moment. His eyes dropped to my lap, then back to my face. "You have secrets, Kevin. I can smell the fear on you." "It's sour." "I don't know what you mean." I lied. Christopher turned away, looking out the window as the car pulled away. "We'll see. People who live in my house don't get to keep secrets for long." When we arrived at Christopher's estate, it was a fortress of modern architecture, cold glass, and steel. The housekeeper met us at the door, looking down her nose at my frayed sneakers. "Master Christopher," she said, "where shall I put the guest?" "The attic," Christopher said, walking past her without breaking stride. "The attic?" The housekeeper blinked. "But sir, that's where you keep your private collection." "No one is allowed. He stays in the attic," Christopher repeated. "Prepare it." "Kevin," Christopher called out as he ascended the stairs. "Go wash. You smell like a funeral home." I was led to a bathroom that was larger than my entire previous apartment. I locked the door, engaging the electronic deadbolt twice. I stripped off my clothes, staring at myself in the mirror. My body was lean, pale, but undeniable in its difference. I had the anatomy of a male, but there were subtle differences, softer lines, and the secret Jordan had discovered. I turned on the shower, letting the hot water scald my skin. I needed to scrub away Jordan's touch. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against the tile. Kevin. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. I jumped, slipping on the wet floor, barely catching myself. Kevin, the water is too hot. You'll burn yourself. I looked around frantically. Christopher? Where are you? Turn the temperature down to 104 degrees, the voice commanded. It was coming from a speaker system integrated into the ceiling. I grabbed a towel, wrapping it around myself. Are you watching me? I watch everything in my house, Christopher's voice replied, calm and unashamed. For your safety. Now, lower the temperature. I shivered, but not from cold. He was watching. He knew. I did as I was told, turning the dial. Is that better, brother? I asked, my voice trembling. Much better, he murmured. Now finish washing. Dinner is in 20 minutes. The click of the intercom deactivating was the loudest sound in the room. I looked up at the ceiling, scanning for the lens. I finally spotted it, a tiny glint in the ventilation shaft. He had seen everything. I dressed quickly in the clothes the housekeeper had left, oversized pajamas that smelled of lavender, and made my way downstairs. Jordan was there, sitting on the sofa, nursing a tumbler of whiskey. He smirked when he saw me. Took you long enough, Jordan drawled. What were you doing in there? Preening. Leave me alone, Jordan, I muttered, heading for the kitchen. You're feisty for a charity case, Jordan laughed. He stood up, blocking my path. You know, Christopher put you in the attic for a reason. It's soundproof. No one can hear you scream up there. Is that a threat? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It's a warning, Jordan whispered, leaning in. Christopher isn't the savior you think he is. He's a monster. A cold-blooded calculator. He only took you in because of the shares. Once he figures out a way to get them, you'll be disposable. That is enough, Jordan. Christopher descended the stairs, wearing a silk black robe that hung loosely on his frame, exposing the hard lines of his chest. He looked like a king surveying his kingdom. I was just having a brotherly chat, Jordan said, raising his glass in a mock toast. Telling him about the family dynamics. Go home, Jordan, Christopher said, walking over to the liquor cabinet. You don't live here anymore. Kick me out. Jordan laughed incredulously. I'm your brother. You have your own inheritance. Buy a condo. Christopher poured himself a drink. Kevin stays here. You leave. Tonight. Jordan's face flushed red with rage, but he set his glass down with a heavy thud. Fine. Have it your way. Enjoy your new pet, Christopher. But remember, wild things bite. Jordan stormed out, the front door slamming behind him. Christopher didn't even flinch. He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, then turned to me. Come here, he said. I walked over slowly, stopping a few feet away. Closer. I stepped into his personal space. He smelled intoxicating. He reached out, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. Why are you trembling? He asked softly. I'm scared, I admitted. Good, Christopher said. Fear keeps you alert. But you don't need to fear Jordan. Not while you are under my roof. And you? I asked, looking up into his dark eyes. Should I fear you? Christopher smiled, a slow, dangerous curving of his lips. Only if you disobey me. Weeks turned into months. Life with Christopher was a strange mix of luxury and captivity. I was enrolled in the best private school, driven by a chauffeur, and tutored in the evenings. One night, I stood outside Christopher's study, clutching a calculus textbook. I knocked softly. Enter, his voice came through the wood. I pushed the door open. Christopher was on a call, his back to me, looking out the window at the city skyline. Make it look like an accident, he was saying into the phone. A car crash. An electrical fire. I don't care. Just clean it up. My blood ran cold. He turned around, seeing me, and his expression didn't change, but he ended the call immediately. Kevin, what are you doing up? I have a math problem, I stammered, holding up the book. I didn't mean to interrupt. Christopher sighed, rubbing his temples. Bring it here. I walked to the desk, laying the book open. It's integrals. I don't understand the application. He looked at the book, then at me. You're smart, Kevin. You know the answer. You just want an excuse to be in here. I looked down, feigning innocence. Maybe I just feel safer in here. Christopher stared at me for a long moment, then pulled a chair next to his. Sit. I'll show you once. He leaned over me, his arm brushing mine as he wrote out the equation. His scent was overwhelming, triggering a heat deep in my belly that I didn't understand. I found myself leaning into him, craving his warmth. He paused, his pen hovering over the paper. Kevin, he murmured, his voice rough. You smell sweet. I froze. It's just the soap. No, Christopher said, turning his head so his nose brushed my neck. It's biological. You smell like honey and distress. He pulled back abruptly, standing up. Go to bed. I'll finish the problem for you later. Christopher, go. He snapped, his control slipping. I grabbed my book and ran back to the attic, my heart pounding. The biannual family gathering at the ancestral hall was mandatory. Even as an illegitimate son, I had to attend. I was sitting in the garden, trying to stay invisible, when a woman in a garish red dress approached me. Vivian, Jordan's mother. My stepmother. Well, she sneered, looking me up and down. If it isn't the little mistake. You didn't even greet me. No manners, just like your whore mother. I stood up, dusting off my pants. My name is Kevin, and my mother was a better person than you'll ever be. Vivian gasped, her face twisting in fury. You insolent brat. She raised her hand to slap me. Mother, don't. Jordan appeared, grabbing her wrist. Not here. Let me teach him a lesson. Vivian shrieked. He thinks because he has those shares he's one of us. He's filth. Who is filth? Christopher emerged from the shadows of the hallway. He was wearing a formal black traditional suit, looking every inch the patriarch. He walked over to us, his gaze sweeping over Vivian with utter disdain. Christopher, Vivian simpered, changing her tone instantly. I was just correcting him. He was disrespectful. Open the registry. Christopher commanded the keeper of the hall, ignoring her. The old man hesitated. Sir, the registry is for legitimate. Open it, Christopher said, his voice dropping to a growl. The book was opened on the altar. Christopher took the brush, dipped it in ink, and handed it to me. Write your name. Next to mine. I looked at him, shocked. Are you sure? Write it, he said. My hand trembled as I wrote, Kevin Sterling. Christopher stood behind me, his chest pressed against my back, his hand covering mine to steady the brush. We were surrounded by the scent of ink and incense, but all I could feel was him. There, Christopher said when I finished. He turned to Vivian. He is in the book now. He is a Sterling. If you insult him again, you insult the family. And I will remove you from this house permanently. Do you understand? Vivian paled, nodding mutely. As we walked away, I looked up at him. Why did you do that? You don't even like me. Christopher didn't look down. You are my property, Kevin. And no one damages my property but me. The breaking point came 2 months later. I was in the downstairs bathroom again. The attic shower was being repaired. I had just finished washing when the lock clicked. I froze. I had locked it. Jordan slipped inside, a wicked grin on his face. Hello, little brother. Get out, I shouted, backing into the shower stall. Christopher will kill you. Christopher is at a gala. Jordan laughed, unbuckling his belt. He won't be back for hours. And I've been dying to see what you're hiding. He lunged at me. I slipped on the wet tiles, falling hard. Jordan was on top of me in a second, his heavy hands pinning my wrists to the floor. Let's see it. He panted, his hand groping down my stomach. Show me the freak show. No. Stop. I screamed, thrashing wildly. The water was still running, soaking us both. Stop fighting. Jordan slapped me hard. My head snapped to the side, ears ringing. You want this. Omegas always want it. I'm not an Omega. I sobbed. We'll see, Jordan hissed. Suddenly, a red dot appeared on Jordan's forehead. Move, a voice said from the doorway. And I blow your brains out. Jordan froze. He looked up slowly. Christopher was standing there, a suppressed pistol in his hand, leveled directly at Jordan's skull. Christopher was still in his tuxedo, rain dripping from his coat. He looked like the angel of death. Christopher, Jordan whimpered. I told you. Christopher walked into the room, the gun never wavering. I told you if you touched him with your dirty hands, I would end you. He seduced me. Jordan lied, scrambling off me. He called me in here. Christopher didn't even look at him. He looked at me, huddled on the floor, shivering, my lip bleeding. A darkness passed over his face that was terrifying to behold. Get out, Christopher said to Jordan. Leave the country. Tonight. If I see you in this city tomorrow, you are a dead man. Jordan didn't need to be told twice. He ran. Christopher holstered the gun and knelt beside me. He reached out, and I flinched violently. It's me, he said softly, his voice a stark contrast to the violence of a moment ago. I'm not going to hurt you. He touched me. I choked out, tears mixing with the shower water. I know, Christopher said. He scooped me up into his arms effortlessly, carrying me out of the bathroom. I'm sorry I was late. He carried me to his master bedroom, laying me on the massive bed. He went to the drawer and pulled out a medical kit. I need to check you, he said, putting on gloves. I need to see if he damaged anything. No, I whispered, curling into a ball. No doctors. Please. No doctors, Christopher agreed. Just me. He was clinical, gentle, but possessive. As his hands examined me, verifying that Jordan hadn't penetrated, the dynamic shifted. I wasn't just a victim. I was his. You are intact, Christopher murmured, stripping off the gloves. He leaned over me, trapping me between his arms. Listen to me, Kevin. You belong to me. Your body, your breath, your life. No one else touches you. Do you understand? I looked up into his eyes, seeing the obsession there. It should have terrified me. Instead, it anchored me. I understand, I whispered. I'm yours. Years passed. I turned 20. The coming-of-age ceremony was to be held on a private yacht. It was the social event of the season. Christopher spared no expense. But I had my own plans. I stood on the deck, the wind whipping my hair. Vivian was there, laughing with her sycophants, drinking champagne. She looked happy. She didn't know she was going to die tonight. I had hacked the navigation system. I had redirected the yacht toward the jagged reefs of the Devil's Spine. In 20 minutes, we would crash. The hull would breach. Everyone would drown. Including me. Including Vivian. Enjoying the party? I turned. Christopher was standing there, holding 2 glasses of juice. He looked devastatingly handsome in a white dinner jacket. It's beautiful, I said, taking a glass. Thank you, brother. He watched me take a sip. You adjusted the navigation coordinates, he said casually. I choked on the juice. What? The navigation system, Christopher repeated, stepping closer. You routed us into the reef. What? I stared at him, my heart hammering. You knew. I check everything. Kevin, he said, taking the glass back from my shaking hand and setting it on the railing. Why do you want to kill everyone on this boat? Not everyone. I whispered, looking at Vivian across the deck. Just her. And me. Christopher grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. His eyes were blazing with fury. You would kill yourself? To get to her? Is your life worth so little? She killed my mother. I hissed, the years of rage spilling over. She poisoned her. I know she did. And you just let her live. I let her live because she is irrelevant. Christopher snapped. She is a gnat. You don't burn down the house to kill a gnat. She deserves to die. Then ask me. Christopher roared, shaking me. If you want her dead, ask me. I will throw her overboard right now. But do not dare try to take your own life. You don't have the right. You belong to me. He dragged me off the deck, down into the captain's quarters. He slammed the door and locked it. The room was spinning. You are a brat, Christopher growled, unbuckling his belt. A suicidal, foolish brat. And you need to be reminded of who owns you. Christopher, don't, he didn't listen. He threw me onto the sofa, pulling me over his knee. The punishment was swift, humiliating, and grounding. When he was done, he pulled me up, kissing me hard, bruising my lips. I am canceling the collision, he breathed against my mouth. And Vivian will have an accident on the way home. Are you happy now? I sobbed into his shoulder, clutching his lapels. Yes, please. But happiness is fragile in the Sterling house. A week later, I was walking past the study when I heard voices. Vivian was there, pleading. Christopher, you can't protect him forever. He's a liability. He is the majority shareholder. Christopher's voice was cold. Is that all he is to you? Vivian shrieked. A bank account. There was a pause. A long, agonizing silence. I need his 15%, Christopher said finally. I don't want to split the company with Jordan. Kevin is a means to an end. Once I have full control, his usefulness is debatable. My world shattered. I backed away, my hand over my mouth. It was all a lie. The protection, the possessiveness, the you are mine. It was just about the shares. I ran. I ran out of the house, hailed a taxi, and went to the darkest, loudest bar I could find. I sat in a booth, drinking vodka straight, trying to drown the pain. Hey pretty boy. A greasy man slid into the booth next to me. You look lonely. Get lost, I slurred. Come on, he grabbed my thigh. How much? You look expensive. I said get lost. I tried to push him away, but I was drunk and weak. Hey, a familiar voice. Jordan. He looked disheveled, older, but it was him. Get your hands off him. The man looked at Jordan. Who are you? I'm his brother, Jordan said, trying to pull the man off. Leave him alone. You want a piece of this too? The man stood up, cracking his knuckles. He was huge. Jordan stepped back, fear flickering in his eyes. Jordan, help me, I whispered. I can't fight him, Kevin, Jordan stammered, backing away. I'm sorry. He abandoned me. Again. The man grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. Now, let's go to the bathroom, and the man suddenly went flying backward, crashing into the table next to us. Christopher stood there, breathing hard, his fists clenched. He looked like a demon. Touch him again. Christopher snarled at the man writhing on the floor, and I will tear your throat out with my teeth. He grabbed me, hauling me out of the booth. You idiot. What are you doing here? Let me go, I screamed, hitting his chest. You only want the shares. You said it. I heard you. Christopher froze. He dragged me out into the alley, pinning me against the brick wall. You were eavesdropping? You heard the first part, but did you stay for the rest? I heard enough. I told her that to get her to lower her guard. Christopher shouted back. I told her that so she wouldn't see you as a threat and try to kill you again. I am protecting you, you moron. I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. You lied to her. I lied to everyone but you. Christopher pressed his forehead against mine. I love you, Kevin. Not as a brother. God help me, not as a brother. I want you. I want to burn the world down for you. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Christopher, let's go home, he said, his voice rough. Back at the estate, the tension finally snapped. He took me into the shower, the water washing away the filth of the bar. But this time, it wasn't just washing. I want to give you a child, Christopher groaned, pressing me against the wet tiles, his hips grinding against mine. I know it's impossible. I know the biology doesn't work. But I want to fill you until there is no room for anything but me. Try. I gasped, wrapping my legs around his waist. Try anyway. It was a night of desperation, of claiming, of pain and pleasure so intermingled I couldn't tell them apart. The next morning, I woke up alone. I found a folder on the nightstand. It was a transfer deed. Christopher had transferred all his assets to me. He had made me the king of Sterling Global. And a note. I'm handling Vivian. Wait for me. Panic seized me. He was going to do something reckless. I got dressed and drove to the coastal highway, the route Vivian took to the airport. I saw the smoke before I saw the cars. A massive pileup. Vivian's limo was a burning wreck. And Christopher's car. It was crushed against the guardrail, teetering over the edge of the cliff. Christopher, I screamed, running toward the edge. He was climbing out of the wreckage, blood streaming down his face. He saw me. Kevin, stay back. No. I scrambled over the barrier. Give me your hand. The car groaned, metal shrieking against stone. It's too heavy, Christopher gasped. The chassis is caught on my leg. Kevin, get back, it's going to fall. I'm not leaving you. I reached down, grabbing his wrist. If you fall, I fall. Don't be stupid. Christopher roared, trying to shake me off. Live. You have the company. You have everything. I don't want the company. I sobbed, pulling with all my strength. I want you. You are my everything. The car shifted. Gravity took hold. I saw the resignation in his eyes. He was going to let go to save me. No. I lunged, throwing my entire body weight backward. Pull. With a scream of effort, I yanked him free just as the car broke loose. It tumbled down the cliff, crashing into the sea below. We collapsed onto the asphalt, gasping, entangled in each other's arms. You idiot, Christopher whispered, burying his face in my neck, shaking uncontrollably. You absolute idiot. I love you, I cried, kissing his bloodied forehead. I love you. 6 years later. The tropical sun was warm on my skin. I sat on the white sand of our private island, watching the turquoise waves lap at the shore. Dinner is ready, a voice called out. Christopher walked down the beach, holding a platter of grilled fish. He looked different. The suits were gone, replaced by linen shirts and shorts. The stress lines around his eyes had smoothed out. He had retired the day after the crash, handing the company over to a board of directors. We had disappeared. I took a piece of fish, feeding it to him. Hey, Christopher. He bit down, his eyes smiling. You aren't my brother, right? I teased, tracing the scar on his temple. He paused, putting the platter down. He grabbed my waist, pulling me into the sand beneath him. I am not your brother. I am your savior. Your lover. Your owner. My husband, I corrected, wrapping my arms around his neck. Your husband, he agreed, leaning down to kiss me. And don't you ever forget it. I won't, I whispered against his lips. I promise. The sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, a perfect ending to a story that started in the rain. We were free. We were alive. And we were finally, truly, home.